Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. You can clearly see my shipping area over here in my house. This is where I ship all of my orders, and I kind of have taken over part of my dining room area, and my family is really nice that they let me do that. But giving you a little glimpse into the real reality of what it's like when you are a vintage antique art dealing curator, if you will, like myself. You kind of take over the house. And it was funny, my son actually made a comment the other day about, Mom, there's always like different art on the walls constantly, and different mirrors, different that, and I always have things kind of styled around my house, and then I change things a lot and things sell, and it's just like this ever evolving home of decor and style. So one of the things I wanted to talk about real quick on that topic is around the idea of mixing design styles. So just a quick video on why I think it's important not to get siloed into one particular design style, and to really incorporate a lot of different design styles into the things that you love in your home. And when you do that, it's amazing just what it does to kind of create this level of interest, and really warms up and creates this richness to just really create this cohesive feeling of kind of a curated, long time intentional element of design. And so I think people are really longing for this type of design. One of my first points is mixing wood tones, and how do you do that? And so this comes back to my point kind of from the beginning of how do you mix, and why is it really good to mix design styles? And I just wanted to talk about that a little bit, because I feel like it's easy to fall into this idea of not mixing design styles, or you want to stick with one particular design style because you feel like that's what makes your area and your home cohesive. But if you can mix different styles, so whether that's from different time periods, maybe you have mid-century, you have things that are more Art Deco, you have things that are more of traditional design, you might have things that are Victorian, you might have things that are more contemporary, or things that are more modernist. Those, when you can combine all of those and mix all of those, it really creates such a just element of warmth, and it's just my most favorite type of design. Sometimes I'll get asked, what is your interior design style, or what style is this? And it's really nothing that can be pinpointed. If you're doing that and you're really mixing styles, there's no particular design style that you can call it. It's really just a mix of design and a mix of styles. And when you do that, it's just amazing. I personally love that look. And I think our society and our culture is really leaning more towards that. We're starting to see that a lot more in just things, at least in my feed, and maybe that's because that's what I like, but I feel like that warm, traditional, just element of library, bookshelves, books, stacks of books, different types of lamps, warm, cozy feeling. And I think by doing this, it just really can elevate your space, and just it gives a different kind of take on what we've seen in the past over many years, with everything matching, wanting things to be cohesive. Even back to going to a furniture store, back when I was a kid, I remember that's what you did, and that was kind of the goal, right? It was to walk into a Sears or whatever type of store there was, and you bought the entire bedroom set. It was the dresser, it was the nightstands, it was the matching headboard, the matching bed frame, and everything was a matching set. And I think what we're seeing, and what's really just so much better, adds so much depth to a space, is when all of those things are mismatching and from different time periods, and mixing many different styles. Bold, rich colors, that's a warm, fabrics in your home. Those are things like different mixing of wood tones. I think this was one of the hardest things for me with wood tones. And so the way I like to think of wood tones is you want to stick with a color family. And so instead of feeling like you have to have all really light wood, or you have to have only really, darker woods, or like cherry tone woods, or like a white birch wood, you don't. You can mix all of those tones, but you want to stay in the same color family in the sense of warmth or cool tones. So if you have more of cool tone woods, if you can stay in that cohesive, even if it's a darker cool tone wood, or a lighter cool tone wood, or more in the neutral, you want to stay in those color families. Or if you, like, for me personally, I love warm tone woods. That's just what I personally like. So I have darker woods that are warm, and I have lighter woods that are warm. And so by mixing those, it works and it's cohesive. You just want to stay in that color family, if that makes sense. And so I'll put some examples here of just what I mean by kind of that color tone family. I'm sure everyone's familiar with more cool tone colors and warm tone colors, but by mixing woods, they don't all have to be the same. I used to always think that, you know, you had to match your wood tones, and it used to be really difficult to do because it's very hard to go out and buy a piece of furniture that might be like a light, you know, wood tone, and then try to match that with everything else in your house that's wood. Is good luck doing that. But it makes everything flat. And so when you do that, and when everything is that same tone, it creates this flat perspective. And so you want to really create all of those different elements of tone in your wood. And when you do that, that's what really brings in that boldness and that richness of color, and really creates that space that feels really, really good and just more interesting and more eclectic. Part of what I'm emphasizing here as well is, I think what we're seeing in society, and at least like I said, on a lot of the kind of interior design and decor of where things are moving and where things are heading, is more of that lived in design. And that's what I personally really love. If you have a space that's more of a, you know, traditional apartment, and you know, maybe it is just white walls, a gray tone floor, what's so important is you want to bring in all of that bold, rich color, warm tone woods, things that create that lived in feeling. So even if that's stacks of books, or if that's a coffee table full of all types of different things that you've collected, those are the more curated and, you know, warm elements that you bring into a space that really create that element of lived in and that kind of richness that we're looking for, that I feel like has been lost for many, many years. We've been in this kind of phase, or at least for a while back, has been more on things put away, minimal, white walls, white countertops, white marble, you know, very just cold aesthetic. And I think what we're seeing is this move towards more of this lived in, just warm feeling. And if that's what you're looking for, these are some of the things that you can do to actually just create that type of feeling in your space. One other design style that I think can be incorporated as well, that I don't feel like is talked about very much, but that's on window treatments. And so what I mean by this is, one of the things that I've been kind of thinking about incorporating in my home is wood blinds. And so we've kind of gotten away from wood blinds. If you think about when's the last time you saw a wood blind, and a lot of homes are kind of defaulted with these wood white, or I don't even really know if they're wood actually, but white shutters. And so having something that's more of a natural material for your window treatments. And so in my Northern California home, more a mountain house, I have these bamboo shades that really have warmed up that space as well. And it naturally already is a warm space just because of the wood ceilings, and you know, there's a room there in the house that I'm going to be turning more into like an office, and the entire room is solid redwood, which is pretty cool. I'll put a couple pictures here of what it looks like. But I went around, my sister-in-law actually came and was visiting, and she helped me put these just little blinds up. And so when you have a house that's out literally in the middle of nowhere in the mountains, you don't necessarily need a lot of curtains or blinds unless you're worried about like the deer seeing you, I guess, in your bedroom. But still, for me, there's certain parts, like if we have people up there that are working on the property, or you know, and you're in your bathroom, it's kind of nice to have a little blind, or when you have guests over in the guest room, it's kind of nice to have little blinds. So we put these little kind of bamboo, and they're inexpensive. Actually, there's so many different sizes of them that you can get on Amazon or different types of decor sites, but there's some really strange little long narrow windows in there that I was actually able to get that particular size, and you can cut them as well. So it definitely adds a lot of flexibility, but I think adding wood blinds and just window treatments and mixing styles. So you might have more of like a cute cafe curtain, right? And you have wood blinds, you have things that maybe are more traditional. You have more of a modern style black, maybe curtain rod, or like a chrome curtain rod or brass curtain rod, mixing those metals, mixing the time periods of your, you know, curtain rod with something that's more contemporary, like maybe just some really simple, you know, nice feeling linen curtains. But when you can mix that in terms of window treatments, I think it's amazing how underestimated window treatments are. And window treatments are expensive. That's one thing that is definitely something. I know for me, I didn't want to spend a lot on my California place with window treatment, so I added, like I said, just those inexpensive little bamboo pull down blinds, but it really warmed up the space, and I'm kind of thinking about incorporating some of that into my Arizona home as well. This is a home that I don't plan on staying here forever. It's not my forever home, so it's one of those things where I do have some just linen curtains that I got on Amazon that I'll link here. They're actually very affordable and really good quality. I was really impressed with how nice these curtains are, and I have them up in my bedroom and a couple other places. But I have more of a modern style curtain rod and then just a simple linen curtain. I think by mixing things in window treatments, or like I said, even incorporating more of that wood style blind, is something that isn't really talked about a lot, but I personally really love that. And I think by mixing those types of elements just on a window treatment really adds such a cool level of interest. And I kind of referred to it in a previous video of this kind of Apple Store aesthetic, if you will. You see it still today in a lot of those like workspaces that are shared, or in different office buildings, even a lot of Airbnbs that I go to. I was actually laughing with my husband because we actually, when we'll stay at an Airbnb, if we go in and the lighting is horrible, we'll actually go in and move around lamps and we'll put them back before we leave, because that's what really creates that nice feeling. And we just can't stand like using these blaring overhead lights that are this cold, high Kelvin temperature. And so we have this running joke that we bring our own light bulbs with us, which we don't, but I'm sure any of you that love design probably can relate to that, where you want to bring your own light bulbs to put in these Airbnbs and even leave them so that they can actually feel like, wow, what a difference that made, how funny. I think it'd be funny to have like a little gift pack with a note or something that said like, hey, try these light bulbs in your place. You'll realize how much of an impact this makes. It's just kind of a funny running joke that we do. One of the things that you can do, and something that I'm seeing too, is like plates on walls, or things like adding in, it's kind of that Ralph Lauren type texture. You see a lot of like plaid, and you see a lot of just warm, rich, bold colors, and even adding things like fishing decor or fly fishing decor, or things that are just more of that like nature element into a space. Try mixing design styles. Try looking at some things that are more contemporary. If you like more of that modern feel and a modern space, mix those with some things that are old. Mixing the old and mixing the new together is it's something that's been around for a long time. This is not a new concept whatsoever, but I think it's something that we sometimes are afraid to maybe try, but that's what actually creates such an awesome feeling of just a curated home and a curated space, is by mixing those design styles. So have things from different eras. Don't be afraid to try things from, like I said, have mid-century pieces. I love mid-century. I have mid-century pieces in my home. I have antique pieces in my home. Like you can see behind me right here, this is a really old antique hutch that has been around for a very long time, but I also have things that are mid-century. This mirror right here, this is a walnut mid-century mirror from probably the 1960s. So having things of just different elements of time and design and mixing those styles, don't be afraid to do that. I used to be afraid to do that. Try to push yourself out of feeling like things need to match, and then in turn feeling like that's actually what creates a cohesive space, but that's actually not true. And so the way to create that cohesive space and the way to create that curated element of design in your home that really feels warm and bold and just comfy is by mixing all of those design styles. So keep in mind what I mentioned about the wood tones. Don't be afraid to mix wood tones. Stay in the same tone family, but when you start to go out and find things that are of all different eras and different time periods and mixing those, and they're things that you truly love, that is really what elevates a space. So more color, more wood, more richness, more bold feelings of warmth in a space. I think this is really where we're going in interior decor, and really what I like to incorporate in my space. And I implore you to really look at some of these things, focus on some of these things that are more curated and collected, and really lend themselves more towards this lived-in feeling. And by mixing design styles, that's really where this comes from. You will get that type of feeling by mixing design styles. Don't be afraid to do that. You can have new and modern and contemporary, but also mix that with the old. And so when you do this, you will really be happy with your space, I think, in terms of just the area of richness and boldness and what it brings from a perspective of kind of carefully curated design, and a lot of really cool ways to do this. It doesn't have to be what other people are doing. That's the beauty of it. It can be things that you're interested in. So maybe you're interested in hunting, or maybe you're interested in fishing. This could be something that you have decor throughout your house that's more leans in that direction. Maybe it is more nautical style. It doesn't have to be of a trend, right? So it can be of your interest and what you really like, but find things in that arena, in that area that are old, that kind of go along with that, and then incorporate that into your space. Wall plates are also a really good way to add this kind of eclectic feeling in your space as well. So you can get on Amazon a wall plate hanger, but this is something that can be, you could find these types of wall plates at a thrift store. You can find them on shops like Etsy. You can find them just all over, really. There's a lot at antique malls. Go with a theme that you really love. So maybe it is fish. I have these Mexican fish plates that I sell pretty often on my shop that are really popular, and it just adds such a level of warmth. I actually sold some recently to an interior design firm that used them in a baby room, which I thought was such a cool idea. They were these Mexican style plates that were more of a neutral tone, but they had a lot of really good texture, and they had a girl that was fishing. There was one that was like of a little family, kind of rustic family type setting, and then one of a little boy on a boat fishing as well. And they actually used those in a little girl's room that they were designing. And I just thought that was such a cool idea. You don't see that very often as well. And so maybe incorporating things like wall plates, and just some of the photos and things that I really like, I will share here as well. But this is a way that you can add things that are of your interest. Like I mentioned, plates that have, maybe they're from different eras and different time periods. It doesn't have to be more of a rustic or Mexican style. It can be of something that's more, Victorian, or like I said, Art Deco, or maybe a more modernist type style. But by adding this, it really adds like warmth and texture into your space and creates more of that lived in feeling. And you can mix a lot of styles this way by adding and incorporating plates on the wall. That was fun talking about mixing design styles. I am actually headed to LA next week for a little while, and then have some other places in California that I'm going for business. So I'll be doing lots of sourcing for my shop, which is linked below, so feel free to check that out. And I'll share with you some of the things that I find, and then I usually try to post those on my shop fairly quickly as well. So more to come on that, but I'll be back in 2 weeks for another video. Thanks everyone for being here, and I'll see you soon. Bye.